Hi guys. Today we will configure our FortiGate that is deployed behind NAT. In this lab, we will use a Cisco router acting as our ISP modem. We will assign 10.6.42.181/24 as our WAN IP and 116.10.10.0.1/29 for LAN. We will also apply a default route and configure NAT. For our FortiGate, we will assign 116.10.10.2/29 in port 1 as WAN, which is connected to our Cisco router. And then, we will allow ping and HTTP with customed port 10443 for our port 1's administrative access. For our FortiGate LAN, we will use port 2 and assign IP address 192.168.10.1/24. Also we will use port 3 for our GUI management access. So let's proceed to our GNS3 and prepare our needed devices. We will use cloud to act as our internet. Our Cisco router as our ISP modem. I'll just change my label here. Why he won't accept it? Anyway, we will use ISP instead. Let's add our FortiGate firewall. A PC. And then our web term for FortiGate GUI management. Let's set up their connections. Cloud to our Cisco router. Router to our FortiGate. FortiGate to our PC. Now let's add our notes. Oops. I just forgot to connect my web term to FortiGate. There you go. Now let's turn on our devices. I think everything is ready. Let us start our configuration in our Cisco router. Conf-t. Let me just bring near my guide. Okay. Let's proceed. We're gonna configure first our WAN interface. Int E0/0. No shut. IP NAT outside. Let us assign our WAN IP address. Set IP add 10.6.42.181. Now we're done configuring our interface E0/0. Let's proceed to configure our interface E0/1 for LAN. No shut. IP NAT inside. I will exit first. And then configure our default route. Our Cisco router's WAN gateway is 10.6.42.1. Let's input IP route 0.0.0.0 space 0.0.0.010.6.42.1. Now we're done adding our default route. Let's test if we already have access to the internet. That's great. We now have access to the internet. The next thing we need to do is to configure NAT. We will use E0/0. Now we need to allow our LAN network. Let us check our used interfaces. I forgot to assign an IP address in our Ethernet 0/1 interface. Let me do it really quick. Now done. Let us check our access list record. Our static IP route. There we have our default route. Also, we can double-check all the configurations we made in our Cisco router. I think we're done with our required configuration in our Cisco router. Let us start to configure our FortiGate firewall. Double-click our FortiGate. Default user is admin. And then we will leave the password empty. Just hit enter. Input our new password. Now we're gonna configure port 1 as our WAN. Edit port 1. Set role WAN. Set mode static. Set allow access. Ping. HTTP. Then hit enter. Then we set our IP address. Our IP address for port 1 is 116.10.10.2/29. And then save. The next thing we need to do is configure our default route. Config router static. Edit 1. Set device port 1. Set gateway. Our gateway is 116.10.10.1. And then save. That's it. We're done our configuration in port 1. Now let's check if we already have access to the internet. Nice. We're doing great so far. The next we need to do is configure port 2 for our LAN. Config system interface. Edit port 2. Set role LAN. Set mode static. Set allow access ping HTTP HTTPS. Set IP address 192.168.10.1/24. And then save. Now we do next our port 3 for our management GUI. Edit port 3. Set role LAN. Set mode static. Set allow access ping SSH HTTP HTTPS. Set IP address 192.168.0.1/24. And then save. Let us go to our web term and edit its configuration settings. We just need to uncomment our static IP configuration. Based on our network requirement, there is no need for us to change the default configuration in our web term's IP address. Now let us open our web term console. Let us try to access our FortiGate. Our user is admin. Password is admin. We will keep everything default for now. The next thing we need to do is to change our FortiGate's HTTP port to 10443. But it seems that our FortiGate is slow. We can try to upgrade the memory of our FortiGate if needed. But let's just reload our page and see what will happen. Looks good right now. Now let us find and click System. And then Settings. In Settings, look for HTTP port under Administration Settings. Change the port from 80 to 10443. And then Apply. Now let us reload our page. We have successfully changed our HTTP default port from 80 to 10443. The next we should do is to allow our FortiGate's port 10443 to our Cisco router. So let's head back to our Cisco router's CLI. Conf t IP NAT inside. Source. Static. TCP. 116.10.10.2. Our port number. Interface E0/0 as our WAN. And then the port number 10443. Before we hit enter, let's try to check first if port 10443 is open on IP address 10.6.42.181. Now we run our command in our Cisco router. That's great. We now able to access our FortiGate firewall behind NAT. Let's try to access our FortiGate GUI using our WAN IP address 10.6.42.181 with port 10443. I think we really need to do some upgrade, guys. Oh. So slow. Can't wait for it. Let us upgrade our FortiGate's memory, guys. Let's shut down our FortiGate first. We will assign 2 GB memory. Now we turn it on again. Let us open our FortiGate's console to monitor its current status. We will just wait for a couple of seconds while our FortiGate is initializing. It's now ready. Let us try to access it with our browser. Now we're able to access its web GUI. Let us try to access our FortiGate using our Cisco router's WAN IP. Great. We are now able to access our FortiGate device, which is located behind NAT. Let's check other interfaces of our FortiGate. We have configured ports 1, 2 and 3. Let us enable the DHCP in our port 2 for LAN interface. Click OK to apply. Now let us check if our client PC can receive an IP from our FortiGate's port 2. IP DHCP. And let's check if our computer can access the internet. That's because we haven't created a firewall policy in our FortiGate. Let us name it LAN to WAN. Incoming interface port 2. Outgoing interface port 1. Set source, destination and service to all. Then click OK. Now our computer is able to access the internet. We already completed the requirement. Now you already have an idea on how to access FortiGate firewall behind NAT. That's all guys. Thank you for watching. See you on our next lab.